Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. We are on tour. We're in Germany, in Düsseldorf, and we are at the SDN and OpenFlow World Congress 2014. And I'm talking with Anshu Agarwal of ContextStream and Paul Gronsund of Telenor. You're both very welcome. First question for you, Paul, if I might. What market and technology trends are driving service providers like Telenor to look at SDN as a solution?
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. There are many drivers for it. Focusing on the high level, we would say that really drawing down the costs, the capex and opex figures, and also to enable us to give better services to the customers. So these are the high level things. For NFV, for instance, we see that being able to run services and deploy services on top of virtualized infrastructures also gives a lot of benefit in terms of cost, because one of the key things is that we can deploy the services at a much faster scale. It doesn't take that long time anymore. So like before, we had to put up dedicated hardware boxes, whereas this is a long time process, whereas now we can deploy on this standardized virtualized infrastructure, and that really reduces the scale. And also by having the virtualization of the SDI LAN and services in that area, and using SDN on the network layer, really enable us to configure and set up new services much quicker. So that are some of the key drivers. And in the end, this will reduce the cost, and it will also enable us to give better services to our customer, to improve the connectivity and the speed of the link. So it's really a lot of benefits.
Thank you. Anshu, this question is for you. What ETSI POC proof of concept are you demonstrating here?
So the name of the ETSI POC that we are showing here is called Subscriber Aware GI LAN Virtualization. And what GI LAN is, it's a network between the P gateway and the internet. And what service providers do there is they put a lot of middle boxes there, and the middle boxes have a function, each individual function. So it could be video optimization, it could be TCP optimization, it could be content filtering, firewall, NAT, it could be any of these functions. And what we are showing is the service chaining of these functions. In a legacy environment, these are serial boxes behind there. We are showing subscriber-aware service chaining. So when a subscriber like myself comes in, I may be subscribed to video optimization and TCP optimization, so I get that service chain. But when my kid comes in, they may be subscribed to parental control, so content filtering comes into play. That's one aspect. The other aspect that we are showing is the elasticity and scalability of a virtual solution. And the third aspect we are showing is the user-driven programmability, where an end user can go in and establish their own customer chain, and therefore can come up with a customized package for themselves.
Okay, thank you. You're working with HP on this. Can you tell us what challenges you think lay ahead in terms of continued carrier migration towards increased virtualization, and where does your relationship with HP play into that?
That's a very good question, and HP plays a big role in that, because what HP does is they provide a complete ecosystem to go after that, and they also have an orchestration. So nothing in virtualization can succeed without a VNF orchestration, because when there were middle boxes, each middle boxes had their own interface and they could be managed. But here, you need to add capacity on demand whenever is needed. So VNF orchestration is really, really important, and HP provides that VNF orchestration. And they also provide the partnerships with other, whether it's VNF vendors or anyone else that can come together and help on us.
Thank you. This one's for you, Paul. What do you think, what results does an operator expect to come out of a particular use case?
Yeah, from this particular use case, I would say we do programmability of the SDI LAN interface, which enable us to then really configure and set up the services much easier than before. So this is in terms of operations, this will reduce the cost, and it's basically much more it's much simpler. The other thing is that we are now able to deploy the services on standard COTS hardware compared to before. This also goes much quicker in terms of deployment and provisioning of these services. And since we have this common platform, the NFVI, we are able to deploy any type of services on this platform. So we have an environment where we can have services from multiple vendors, and that's very important. And in the end, operations are hopefully becoming much better. Hopefully the performance will also increase if we manage to do that correct, and the cost will reduce. So there's a lot of benefits.
Thank you. Another one for you, Anshu. How is this relevant to business and technical issues in mobile operators today as far as context stream is concerned?
So there are several business issues, but I'm going to talk about the most important ones, and Paul alluded to them in his previous answer. The first business issue is that data traffic is growing really rapidly, and the revenues are not growing proportionately. So the service providers really need to optimize their network. And the service providers realize that the legacy network design and architecture and the paradigm is not suited for this kind of optimization that we're talking about. So an NFV approach is needed. And that's why this transformation is needed to basically optimize the network and reduce the cost. And there's a move towards the COTS hardware, and that's also for reduction of the cost, and this is really, really important for that. The second business issue, I think, which is actually in the long run, it's going to be even more important, is the need to defend and protect the revenue stream that's being leaking to OTT providers. And the reason why OTT providers were succeeding is because of the agility, because they can roll out new services easily. They don't have big networks that they need to worry about. So service providers, to compete effectively, they need to add that agility to their network. And that can be added with SDN programmability. You have to create a programmable network to be able to create and roll out these new services.
Thank you. Staying with you, Anshu, again for a moment. HP is clearly playing a major role in NFV. How is HP uniquely positioned to meet the needs of the carriers, do you think?
HP is very uniquely positioned because they have all the elements that are needed for a carrier solution for NFV. First of all, they have the orchestration piece, which is very important, as I said earlier. The second thing is they have a very, very high performance COTS-based computing and storage platform. And as Paul mentioned, that move towards COTS is happening. It's happening everywhere in service provider network. And therefore, that adds a lot of value. Then the ability to establish a partner ecosystem resides with a vendor like HP. And also ending that, testing that end-to-end solution is also very important, because carrier is only going to deploy a solution and not a point product. Also, HP has that advantage of providing that. And last but not the least, HP is a trusted vendor for these carriers, and therefore there is the relationships that come into play.
Thank you, and back to you, Paul. What are the benefits of supporting ETSI POC's proof of concepts for a telecom operator like Telenor?
I would say it's this is a very key point in the ETSI standardization organ. It's something that I believe is a very important thing. They are kind of bringing together partners doing the standardization, like vendors, operators, and other institutions to go together and do testing of innovative concepts within NFV and also including SDN. So for us, in this particular POC we have done with the context, we have learned a lot from them, and we have had workshops together and a lot of discussions. So it's kind of a very important step for us to learn more about NFV and SDN. And I hope also that we have been able to give them a lot of input on our requirements And these fruitful discussions has led into further discussions. So we are then progressing our work and really figuring out things. And we are then able to identify gaps in the standardizations, which are important to fill and work on. So I think this is a brilliant thing that is being done in Etsy, which we really support, and therefore it's also valuable for us to really support this box and work with the vendors such as ContextRoom and HP, of course.
Thank you. Staying with you for the final question, there are paradigm shifts that happen in this industry every now and again. What has surprised you most about this one, SDN and NFV?
I think what's happening here is that it's moving incredibly fast. So it's really the number of companies and organizations participating is really growing tremendously. And one thing that is really what we can see is that the openness has increased a lot compared to before. People are working together to do this as a kind of community to really make this happen. And also with the introductions of all these open source projects like OpenStack, Open Daylight, OP, NFV, and so forth. So the industry is kind of driving this together and makes it happen and move at a pace that I don't think we have seen before, and that's amazing. So I think that's maybe the biggest shift.
Anshu, do you have anything to add to that?
Actually, Paul summarized it very well, and that is really the most surprising thing, how the carrier community got together into 2012, not too long ago, 2 years ago, and put together this white paper calling the vendor community to help in this transformation. I don't think, I've been in industry for long, I don't think ever in the past I have seen such collaboration between carriers and vendors. And this, as a vendor, what it's given us is very good understanding of carrier requirements and priorities, which I had never had visibility without really dealing with one-on-one with the carriers. Here we are getting together as a community and working on it.
Great stuff. Thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.